Hello, my name is Rain Spotticalf. I am doing my final for educational psychology. And for this final, I am doing a lesson. I chose math because that is the profession of education I wish to go in. And I am doing adding fractions. I apologize beforehand for the bad quality of this video and the lack of resources. I am currently using just some paper, my notebook as like a guidance for my lessons. And I am in my car right now using a handheld phone. Um, Throughout this video, I will mainly be addressing my audience as if they are a classroom. I am assuming that my students already know the basic factors of multiplication and addition and factoring numbers. All right, I'm going to be beginning my final lesson, adding fractions. Now, when we think of adding fractions, let's look at a pizza. Everybody has to love pizza, right? Now, pardon my lazy drawing. Think of a half a pizza. Now, everybody loves pizza, but deep inside, do we really ever want half a pizza? No. But what if we add another half a pizza? What will we then get? A whole pizza. Now, we may or may not know it, but we just added a fractions. Two fractions, in fact. We added a half plus a half, and we got a whole pizza. Now, going back to the fraction, let's look at what a fraction is and what parts of a fraction there are. The top fraction, top number right here, is known as the numerator. This is what we're going to be kind of adding and focusing on, as well as the denominator. Now, we are going to be learning how to add the denominators, both for the same denominator, such as the half plus a half, and then we are also going to be looking at different denominators. Don't worry, it's not too hard. All right, so let's go back to that half and half a pizza becoming a whole. Okay. So we got ourselves a half plus a half. Now, how exactly are we going to be adding this fraction? So, to begin with, we are only going to be worrying about this number and this number. Because these are the same, we are not going to change them at all. So we're just going to do 2 and 2. So if it's the same, it just moves right over. Okay, now the only thing we're going to be doing is we're going to be adding the numerator, the 1 plus 1. Now, it may be easy if you do 1 plus 1 over 2. That's the most simple way to think about it. And if you think of that, we have 2 over 2. Now, we can simplify this, and once again, I'm assuming you guys know most about simplifying and factoring. So, what is 2 over 2? Think of the pizza. 1, right? There we go. We won't be simplifying everything in this lesson, just the most basics and the most notable one. Okay, so 1 half plus 1 half equals 2 over 2 equals 1. So now let's look at a different one. Okay, so we got our 6 and our 6, and we got a 2 and 1. 2 sixths plus 1 sixth. Now, class, when we think of this, what happens to the denominator? Does it change? No, it just stays the same. Okay, now we are going to be focusing on the top. So 2 plus 1 over 6. I'm going to be thinking back that. So we get what? 3 over 6. Once again, we can simplify it. We cannot. We could just leave it. I'm not going to be focusing much on simplifying. We're just going to be, yeah. So we got a 2 6 plus 1 6 is 3 6. All right, so not too hard, right? Okay, So now we're going to be looking at a 4/8 plus 3/8. So once again, denominator is going to stay the same. So 8. Okay. And then the 4 plus the 3. And that's going to be 7/8, right? Right on. 7/8. Once again, denominator stays the same. Numerator is the only one that changes. Now, class, I want you to look at this question. 3/6 plus the 1/6. Now, I want you to do it. Remember the steps. Take your time. And pause this video while you do this question. Okay, I am assuming that you have done this question and that you have arrived to an answer. So, we're going to look at the steps taken. Oops, I apologize. Okay, so class, what you should have gotten was the numerator should have stayed the same. I'm sorry, the denominator should have stayed the same. Trick question, guys. Haha. Okay, so 3 plus 1. So we've got 3 and a 1, and that equals a 4/6. Now, I'm assuming you guys didn't cheat and just wait for me to go over this. All right? All right, now we are going to be looking at what if the denominator was different? What would then? How would we take to that? Just a second while I find a different marker to work with. Okay. So we got a 1/6 and a 1/3. Now we may notice that the denominator is different, completely different. This means that the denominator, when we add our fraction, is not going to stay the same. But that just seems way too complicated, doesn't it, class? Yeah, too complicated. So what we are going to do, we are going to find a way to make these ends meet. Meaning we are going to find a way to make the denominator the same. Okay, so think of the factors that 3 and 6 have together. What are they a factor of? Sure, we know that 6 has a factor of 3 and a 2. And we also know that they are both factors of 12 and so forth. But let's keep it a little easy. So we just want to make sure that one of these add up, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and make it so that both of them are 6. How do we do that, though? How do we do that? So one easy way is going to be we're going to do a 1/3, and we know that we want our denominator to be what? 6, right? We want them to be the same. So how did we get from a 3 to a 6? Multiplied by 2, right? So we're going to do that times 2, and we're also going to be multiplying the top by 2. What happens to the bottom happens to the top. So class, what is 1 times 2? 2, right? Okay, so now we've got our new question, our new numbers. So now we're going to do 2/6. That was originally our 1/3. And we are going to be adding it to our 1/6. Now, we both have the same denominator. They're both the same. So now that can remain the same. We don't have to do anything more. Now we're going to do the numerator though. 2 plus 1 equals, once again, 3/6. And that, class, is how you go from a different denominator to the same and to get a final answer. Now, how about we go through a few more questions just to make sure everybody has the gist of it. So as you saw from my peeking page, we have 2/8 plus 1/16. Now, once again, think of the factors. We just want to make sure that both of the denominators have the same number. So let's go back to our ways, and what we are going to do is we're going to make sure Now we could either make big bold numbers of 36. We can make sure it's that and this, but let's just make sure that it is this. So we're going to go down here, 2 over 8. Okay, and we want the denominator to be what? 16, right? We're going to keep it easy. So how did we get to here though? How did we get from an 8 to a 16? It doubled, right? It doubled. So we're going to multiply by 2. And remember, what happens on the bottom happens to the top. Okay, so what do we get for that? So an 8 times 2 we know is a 16. But class, what is a 2 times 2? 4, right? So we got a 4 over 16th. So now that we got the same denominator, let's go ahead and bring our problem down here. So now it is going to be a 4 over 16th plus the 1 over 16th. Now, this is pretty simple. Denominator stays the same, but numerator changes. 4 plus 1, and we got what? 5 over 16th. Well done. Okay. Alrighty, now we've got something a little different. This one, we are not going to be able to merely double. And it is odd numbers for our denominator. So we got a 2/7 plus the 1/5. How exactly are we going to do that? We can't double 7, and we can't double 5 to meet the other. So what factors do we know involve 7 and 5? We know 7 goes from 7, 14. So 7, 14, 28. No, I'm sorry. 7 to 14 and so forth. But what about 35? 35 has, right? 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. So we're going to make sure it goes to 35. Now we're going to have to change both of them. Okay? So we got 2/7, and we want it to equal what? 35, right? Okay? So how did we get from 7 to 35? Multiplied by 5, right? Remember, what happens on the bottom happens to the top. There, right? So we got 1, but Mr. 5 is still lonely. Let's multiply him, shall we? Okay, so we're going to do the same over here. So 1/5, and we're going to make that to a 35. But we can't multiply it by 5 again, remember? It's going to be 25, not 35. Still pretty lonely. He doesn't want to be left out. So we're going to multiply it by 7. Okay, now we all know 7 times 1 equals what? 7? There we go. All right, so now we've got both numbers with the same denominator. So we're just going to bring that right down here. All right, and now we've got the 10 plus the 7 over 35. And that's what now? 17 over 35. Can we really simplify that? No. All right. So, got a little practice with that. Now, I want you to think about this question. 1/3 plus 1/20. I want you guys to take a moment to go over what we just went over, and I also want you to solve it. Now, take a minute and solve. Now, I'm going to assume you guys did not cheat and are merely watching this next part just to get the answers. So, I'm all assuming that you guys solved it. So, our first step is we thought of a factor and we thought of 60. So, 1/3 equals 20 over 60. Now, we had to change the other one, the 1/20, and we got a 120 equals a 360. Okay, now we got to look at the others. All right. So we got a 20 over 60 plus a 3 over 60. And we got what? 23 over 60. See, it's not really too bad. There's plenty of resources online if you guys did not get this math lesson. It is simple. All you guys got to do is take your time, believe in yourself, and just remember the denominator must be the same when adding a fraction. Alrighty, this is Rain Spotted Calf. This was my lesson for my final in educational psychology. I realized I did have a few mishaps, but limited resources, and this is my first time ever presenting a lesson. And yeah, anyway, I really enjoyed this class. I really learned a lot, and it actually made me look forward to the next step. Alrighty, thank you, bye.